Towson here from discussing things that we Baltimoreans call local here. And we'll get to the Terps and the Caps and the Wizards. But it has been fun the last week and a half. And quite frankly, I have not had enough Washington media on the show. So here with the snowstorm and the crazy week and the Terps, I figured it would just be fun to dedicate whatever extra resources we have here. We're not talking about the Ravens or those, to making fun of the Washington Redskins. Cindy Boren is here from the Washington Post. She amalgamates and puts things together for the Early Lead and the WashingtonPost.com. She is a defending champion around here and gets my extreme sense of humor. You can follow her at Cindy Boren out on Twitter as well. You know, you have to have a sense of humor. I mean, none of my Redskins fans do have a sense of humor because we've had parades up here, but this is a great time for anybody in Baltimore to call their old Redskin buddies and say, how's that off season going for you, huh?
See, that's just mean. I mean, it's
well, isn't Dan Snyder mean? I mean, isn't that really what it comes down to?
And you know, most Redskins fans will just sort of sit there and tell you, you know what, we can't really argue. You know, with so much going on, it's so typical of the Redskins, with so much going on, you know, with Maryland and the NCAA tournament and the Caps and the Wizards and the Nationals, and yet the Redskins find a way to come back and seize the headlines again.
Well, they are the worst of the local teams right now, right? You know, as Tom Boswell pointed out in his Sunday column, you know, there's other places for you to go date if you want. You know, you can go out with the Capitals for the next until such time that they start to win games again when they had a rough weekend. Wizards, Terps, Nationals are getting started. The Orioles up here, the Ravens. There's other things going on, but from the Redskins' perspective, you've been at this a long time. Everybody down there's been at this a long time. We have this period here where people are normalizing, not Donald Trump, but Peter Angelos in Baltimore. You know, they've normalized him over 25 years that media being banned is okay, and lies are okay, and PR, Kellyanne Conway nonsense and Sean Spicer nonsense, that's okay. The Orioles fan base has done that, certainly what's left of the Orioles media, and I use the term media loosely. You know, down in D.C., I think Dan's been given a little bit of a hall pass because you found a quarterback, they haven't fired the coach recently, and the team's been competitive. It's a lot easier to kick him around when the team's 4-12, right?
Yes. You know, I guess the thing is, I think they're really losing their patience, though. And I think, you know, every year the pool shrinks a little smaller of fans. And, you know, their hopes were raised a couple of years ago when the team brought in Scott McLuhan, and everyone felt, you know, finally there's going to be a talent evaluator, someone who actually, you know, can look at people and determine whether they're worth drafting or not. And you know, I think, unfortunately, it was structured so that he was just going to be an Uber scout. And, you know, Bruce Allen was still calling the shots. And it, you know, that coupled with
well, I don't know if you'd be comfortable giving the key to the kingdom to a guy who had the problems that he had. You know, that's one of the reasons he was, I don't want to say toxic, but he was risky to bring in. It's
one of the reasons he was available.
Of course.
And, you know, it was... It's one thing to bring him in and realize that he has such incredible talent that, you know, I mean, I would have made that higher. The problem is, what kind of an environment are you setting up for him? Are you creating an environment that is supportive? Are you doing things that are constructive for him as he deals with this? You know, you can't just throw him in and expect, especially given the Seth Wickersham story in ESPN, in which he said, you know, he was still drinking. I mean, if that didn't throw up a red flag, and it might have to me, but if that didn't, and you brought him in, you've got to take steps to help him along because he's worth it. He's smart. He knows what he's seeing, and he's done a good job before. You know, he did a good job in San Fran, and he did a good job in Seattle.
And he did a good job in Washington until such point. Yeah, here's the problem that I have, Cindy. And look, this speaks to the guy who's running our government, who's down the street from you. I'm not real big on lying. You know what I mean? Like, over 25 years of being here on the radio, I don't bring people on my radio show to lie. Certainly within my family, within my marriage, within my son, within people I trust, my friendships, my business relationships. I'm not real big on being lied to, and I don't forgive it very easily. it's probably one of my real it's either a character flaw or it's a credit to my character. I'm not sure, but I'm not real forgiving when you look me in the eye and lie to me again and lie to me again. This has been Dan Snyder from the beginning. He's not an honest man. He's not a good person. Based on how many people around him have been mistreated, the way he's used money, the way he's used intimidation. He's done everything except go on Twitter and call Rosie O'Donnell fat in the middle of the night. He's not that guy, but he's also the first guy that will lie to twist himself out of a hole. And he's found himself now where he doesn't really have a lot of credibility, right? And if you were to sit and interview him, you'd have to question what he's saying. And this is where I got sideways with the Orioles is you're going to give me a press pass and I'm going to come in there and you're going to lie to me. I'm not here to recite your lies. And in the case of this McLuhan thing, in 2017, in the era of social media, the whole scene in Indianapolis 2 weeks ago and how the whole thing came out about his grandmother, I mean, it's a deplorable situation where you get exposed because, as we always say, the truth does come out. And in the case of the Redskins fans, maybe more so than half of Americans, they actually believe the truth when you guys report it. There's no one defending what the Redskins have done here or what they've become over the last 2 decades. And everybody on your staff has gone, all in on takedowns at this point. But he owns the team. He's not going anywhere. I mean, I found that out with the goofball that owns the baseball team up here. He's not going anywhere.
Jed York said it, so it's one thing for an owner to be quiet, but, Jed York in San Francisco said, well, owners don't get fired. Well, okay, you could be a complete incompetent, dishonest person, and if you own the football team, if you own the sports franchise, you're not going anywhere. And I think
it's amazing how comfortable rich people are with being dishonest. You know what I mean? It really is. It's amazing that they've now tried to twist facts around like his grandmother died last week when it's clear she died a month ago. You know what I mean? Like those type of things to search them out, that should be unacceptable to anybody writing a check to the Washington Redskins.
It should be, yes. And that's been the problem. That's been the culture all along. And the other problem is, nobody really knows what goes on inside the Little Redskins Park area because the media is kept in a separate building.
When the shades are pulled down, from what I understand.
Yes, and it's like Versailles. It's so Machiavellian, the stuff that's going on in there, and it if they were as good at football and football decisions as they are at palace politics, they'd win the Super Bowl every year.
Well, the Mike Nolan vanilla ice cream story that. I know that's a fact because Mike Nolan's never lied to me in 20 years of relationship. And I just think of what kind of human being what kind of a grown-up would do that? And then what do they become 20 years later when there's no price to be paid, right? I mean, for any of Dan Snyder's transgressions, for how he's mistreated people, there's always another Scott McLuhan ready to get in line and run the place. I mean, I've dealt with that in Baltimore, with my press pass being taken away 11 years ago. There's always some Buck Showalter who's desperate for a job, who checks off the boxes of being good at said sport or talent evaluation or leadership, who's willing to take a job for these various scumbags who own teams.
Well, that's the question that this whole adventure with Scott McLuhan raises. It started with the Senior Bowl when they wouldn't make him available to the media. Who's going to want to come here? If you're a talented free agent, you're going to want to come here. I mean, sure, if you're cream of the crop, Josh Norman, the owner will give you $50 million or whatever, and that's great. And if you don't care about winning, if you're not interested in anything else, and 99% of NFL players really want to win, they're not just in it for the paycheck. And you're going to get the guys who are just here to be paid. And there are only 1,600 or so jobs in the NFL, so you'll get people who will come to the Redskins, and there are only 32 jobs in coaching. It's such a small population. You'll still get people who will agree to come here, and everyone always thinks it will be different with them. I mean, I've been here 16 years. I've been through a lot of these changes, and every single guy comes in with the same thought. Well, it's going to be different with me. It's going to be different. And
Mike Flanagan sat in
ends
Michael's and told me that about Peter Angelos back in 2002. Mike said, this is going to be different for me. And I can't begin to tell you, now that we've played that thing forward 15 years and how that ended, sadly, tragically, horrifically. But, I've been at this a long time, and when I watch it from afar, look, I've hated the Redskins all my life, right? So, I'm a Baltimore guy. They were forced down our throat from 84 to 96. We almost didn't get a team here because of the Redskins. So, I've got some animosity to some degree. It is withered with time over 20 years. We have our own football team. We've won championships. I don't have enough time to care about the Redskins enough to dislike them, but watching this from a media standpoint nearby, with you guys covering it, with many, many people I know in my space who go down to Redskins Park and follow the Redskins, this is, it's tragic for the fans who do care, and watching this and saying how. I really do go back to this. For a couple of years, it's been kind of quiet around there, right? Like normalized because 10 or 11 wins and a quarterback who gets the job done. But when the quarterback's in begging to be gone, and I know Jason Cole reported on Sunday night that the reason McCloughan was fired was he was trying to trade Kirk Cousins, and Dan Snyder said, no, that's insubordinate. We're not going to do that around here. We're going to lace it up with him. Wait, what about Cousins? What does Cousins not like about the Redskins at this point? Why does he want out so bad?
I'm no one really knows, and I think, and my theory is that it must go back to the days of the way the owner treated Robert Griffin III. Remember how in love he was with RG3? You may not, because you don't.
Oh, I do. I remember.
Remember he spent Thanksgiving with him that first year. Oh my Lord, it was a bromance of epic proportions. And Cousins was also there. And one thing we know about Snyder is that he pays attention to stars. He loves his stars. And basically, everyone on the roster from about, the 21st roster spot on through 53, he just doesn't really pay too much attention to because, they're not the stars. They're the guys who are going to win you the championship, so you should pay attention. But, he loves his stars. And there has to have been something, and even, then when RG3 was hurt and Cousins came on strong, there had to have been something there that really offended Cousins, although it may also just be as simple as him looking at the way things are done inside Redskins Park and going, I want out of here. And he and Kyle Shanahan are tight. He and Sean McVay are tight. He clearly had a pipeline to other information too. If there was nothing between him and Snyder,
he's going to wind up a Redskin this year, right? This is all going to blow over. He's going to quarterback the team, right?
I think so. And it's going to be interesting to see who they surround him with. Two of the receivers are gone. His two favorites. Who are they going to get? Supposedly Scott McCloughan had filled out a draft board and was, on top of that. They're ready to go. It won't be necessarily Bruce Allen making those. He would have McCloughan's input there from the draft board if he opts to take it.
Who needs the soap opera of government down there when you've got the Redskins, right? Cindy Bourne joining us here from the Washington Post. You can follow her journey out on Twitter at Cindy Bourne. That's Boren, as well as at the Early Lead out at WashingtonPost.com. This is an aside. I know the Redskins sort of eat up a lot of the oxygen in the room down there for everybody in D.C. But up here in Baltimore, they eat up none, and we do follow the Capitals. We do follow the Wizards. We are following the Terps down to Orlando this week. It has been an unprecedented time, really, I think, for sports in our region. When I say the corridor, I rarely lump Baltimore and Washington together, but I think when the Capitals and the Wizards and the Terps are all going well, which is like never, by the way, right? This period of time, I've been 25 years of doing sports radio, 34 years in the marketplace as a journalist. I don't remember any March or April where the Wizards are in first place. Now the Capitals had a rough weekend, but people are really believing everything in the Wizards now in regard to the Cavaliers and the Warriors and them making noise in May. Obviously, the Capitals are what they are, and the Nationals should be the favorite again in the National League East. This is a heady time to be in the Washington area and be a sports fan, I think. And there are, as Tom Boswell pointed out, there's some other girlfriends you can go out and go on a date with here if you want to over the next 8 weeks. You don't have to worry so much about the Redskins or the Nationals for that matter, right?
Well, right now, I mean, the Wizards, I think, are probably getting short shrift. They're terrific. And, I don't know how far they can go in the playoffs, but I suspect they can go pretty darn far.
Well, they are the least supported of all the brands, right? I mean, they are the brand that has the most room for growth, and this better be the time that it's growing for Wall and Beal.
And, the Caps have their fan base is solid. It's steady. But, for the casual fan, I mean, they haven't delivered, when it comes to the playoffs. I think everyone's attitude is sort of show me what you can do in the playoffs, get to the Stanley Cup Finals and then we'll talk. And, the Wizards have always been sort of the underachievers. And now this year, I really think they have the best prospects of the three teams. Now, I know the Nats are loaded. But again, I think there's a little bit of capsitis there. People have seen the Nats not live up to expectations when it comes time to for the playoffs. I think the Wizards might actually exceed expectations. That would be a rarity for a Washington pro sports team to exceed expectations in the postseason.
This is a heck of a time for Ted Leonsis and for his family with these two teams, and obviously came in the front door with the Caps, waited out Abe on the basketball side. But, for all the hand-wringing over Grunfeld and all the hand-wringing over, various coaches with the Capitals, this is a glorious time for him, and at a time where, once again, the Redskins, the big banana, Snyder can't stay out of his own way and can't get positive press. This is a nice time for Monumental's growth, right?
Sure. Oh, sure. And I would think that would, certainly improve based on, if the Wizards can win a couple of playoff rounds, sure. That's only going to help. And I don't see really why they can't at this point.
Go ahead.
We've got another couple of months of the regular season to go, and, things can happen. Hot teams can get cold for no reason. But
I'm a Caps fan, I'm aware.
Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking of. And, the way they remember of course you do. A couple of years ago, they'd rip off all these wins in February and early March, and then they'd just go splat in the playoffs. And, I think everybody's kind of looking at the Wizards, who are just so red hot, to see what they do, to see if they cool off, if this is, is this the new reality? Maybe it is. They've all been healthy for the most part. Does somebody get injured? Does it all fall apart?
And certainly made the right moves around the trading deadline as well a couple weeks ago. I mean, fortifying and having you believe more. I mean, that's like they spotted Portland a 20-point lead the other night and said, let's see if we can get out of this hole. And they did. So West Coast trip has been great for them. The Caps fell on their face, and, you still got a month to pick it up here. But, it's an exciting spring right now. It certainly beats the alternative of crappy Caps years and woeful Wizards efforts and, the Terps not being in the tournament. It's a good time around here, and I don't just mean for snow shoveling at this point, Cindy. But, hey, I appreciate the time as always. Always great to visit with you. We live on the turmoil of Dan Snyder up here. We really do enjoy it. I mean, Redskins fans and Ravens fans, they sort of intersect to some degree. But in the end, we don't want anything good to happen to the Redskins down there. I want to make that clear.
Well, that's all right, and I can appreciate that. And it must be nice to be up there and have a stable front office and an owner who.
No, it's only 6 months of the year. The baseball season starts in 2 weeks. Trust me, anything's possible up here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, Washington will be able to talk some smack then when the baseball season opens.
You know what? I want to see the poster
in terms of ownership. I mean, I think I like the Orioles. I do. I enjoy the O's. I like to watch the O's. Sometimes I prefer to watch them to the Nats. So, I have really no bias here about that. I'm just speaking strictly about owners.
Well, I'm talking about the owners, right. I agree with you with the Angelos thing that at some point, the dysfunction of the Orioles is just as bad as the dysfunction of the Redskins. It's just there's no media left up here to cover it. You know what I mean? You guys are at least down there in their cage. The Baltimore Sun's not going to get in the cage of Peter Angelos. They're doing business together. So that's that's a real problem here. That's a real problem for our government, and I think it's a real problem for journalism. And I think when Dan Snyder's doing crazy stuff, at least I do know the Washington Post will call him out on it when they're lying. And for that, I'm grateful from the journalism side of things. So great having you on, Cindy. As always, we're going to send everybody out to the Washington Post. Make sure you guys are covering that Mass and Money story coming down the pike here this week.
I know. I'm keeping an eye on that.
I want to see Mr. Angelos have to write a big check to Mr. Lerner. We'll see how that goes.
That would be nice.
I'm sure
it would be nice to have this resolved.
I'm sure there's another Supreme Appellate higher court in some state that they'll take this thing and drag it. Right now it's being dragged to the New York Supreme Court. We'll see how it turns out in the end. But a lot of money there at stake, a couple $100 million that Mr. Angelos has on his side of the fence, and Mr. Lerner's trying to claw and get it. But it'd be nice to have a couple spring training games on TV too. While I'm bitching about Angelos, let me throw that in too.
Yeah, it would be nice. But nice. There's always another court. There's always another place to fight it, and so I'm not terribly optimistic that anything gets resolved. But maybe it will. Maybe they'll finally give up.
No, come on.
I know.
There's
no
giving up. You didn't really say that. Cindy, take care of yourself. Be well down there and endure the storm. We'll see you on the other side.
Thank you. Take care.
We love Cindy Boren. She's from the Washington Post. She is the early lead. You can follow her out at Cindy Boren. That's Boren. That's Cindy, Cindy. And at WashingtonPost.com. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It's powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on our WNST tech service. It's been a very active week if you're a Ravens fan. We're waiting on some more Orioles spring training information. We'll get the World Baseball Classic done this weekend and get everybody back in the house for opening day 2 weeks from now. It's crazy. 2.5 weeks out on opening day. Shoveling snow, waiting for the Terps down in Orlando this weekend. I am Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net can always find me. We have our London trip on sale. Don't forget, head coach Barry Trotz of the Washington Capitals joining us at Greenmount Station in Hampstead on Monday. We'll be swabbing for the bone marrow registry, talking Caps. Whew, hope things get better here this week. It'd be a much more pleasant conversation with Coach Trotz next Monday if they win a couple of games this week. Tough weekend in California for the Caps, and a tough weekend in D.C. for the Terps as well. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.